My name is Amelia Royko, and in my world, food symbolizes love. Love of family, of community, of the generous fields, forests, and waters that sustain us all. That all began in the environment in which I grew up, where care for one another was often expressed through food. My grandparents had a family restaurant, as in everyone who came through the door was treated like family. My grandmother served homemade Sicilian comfort food, made from fresh ingredients and eaten with what I remember as real joy. And my uncles were also fabulous cooks. Joe had a popular Sicilian supper club. Sam grew his own produce and was more of a backyard chef. But oh, the delicious food he would make for us. His extended family lived in a fourplex, and I can still smell the place. Strong coffee, garlic, fennel, lemon, sometimes spiedini, gardone, rougeole. Each ingredient was honored for its own distinct flavor. My grandfather would treat us to crisp apples from trees he had planted around the city. And he got his eggs from a nearby farmer, someone he knew. I remember sensing his loyalty and that feeling of camaraderie in that personal transaction. My uncle took me to the dairy where he got us raw milk on the weekends. I remember meeting the farmer and right then becoming aware of the important connection we were making to our food. It's moments like those, going to a dairy to get milk from a farmer, that make the most absolute sense at the most basic level. And so when I was young, I was given a great gift of experience with freshly made food and all the love that went into preparing and sharing it. It was fun, it was tasty, and now I look back on it with immense gratitude.
Then I grew up and went out on my own. That's when I realized just what a wonderful gift I'd been given. I found myself surrounded by what appeared to be a great abundance of food, but it turned out to be provided by a food system that exists to do two things well: to cut costs wherever possible, and to convince us that what we're spending our money on is good food. Here's an example. I've gone to a grocery store and bought some tomatoes or carrots, or I've splurged on one of those little boxes of blueberries. Once I got them home, it was like, what happened to the flavor? Aren't they supposed to taste like tomatoes or carrots or blueberries? But that isn't what they're made to do. What most commercially available fruits and vegetables are bred for is to be picked well before they're ripe, shipped thousands of miles, to be stored in warehouses, and to be fresh looking as long as possible in grocery stores. On the other hand, nature makes fruits and vegetables to be picked and eaten when they become ripe. That's when they have the very best flavor and the most nutrition. Or take milk or meat or grain that goes through industrial processing, where it's mixed with preservatives, flavor enhancers, and coloring additives. And large, calculated doses of fat, sugar, and salt. Why? Because these substances affect our brain chemistry in the same ways that addictive drugs do. When children eat lots of that stuff, their brains actually develop the long-term neural pathways of addiction. We're a nation of addicts, craving something that's supposed to be good for us, but oftentimes is not good for us at all.
Now I have a family of my own, and the importance of changing how we eat is literally hitting home. Like, what about all those chemicals and hormones and antibiotics that the industrial food system relies on? They end up getting mixed together in our bodies and all throughout the environment. The effects of that are showing up in people's bodies and in nature now, but no one knows what the long-term effects will be. Why should my daughter, or anyone's child for that matter, be an involuntary laboratory experiment? And where does the money we spend on food actually go? My friend Barbara Wright, who's a chef and a food educator, came up with a good way to show that.
This is a pie I bought from my local grocery store. Now I spent $12.99 for this pie, but just for the sake of simplicity, let's say that this represents $1 spent for food. Let's see where this food dollar goes. 40 cents goes to non-farm labor, such as middle managers and marketers. 30 cents goes to advertising, warehousing, bonuses, and incentives. 20 cents goes to packaging and transportation.
It seems to me the people who deserve it the most are the farmers who care about how they grow our food. But these are the very people whose already small profit margins have been aggressively driven downward until they simply cannot compete with the low prices of imported food or with the massive industrial food operations spreading across the landscape. The bottom line is, my family and I deserve food that is safe and contributes to our good health. I want our daughter Gigi to grow up in a country where that food is available and affordable for anyone, anywhere. And I want Gigi to learn some basic values by the way we live. Respect for people who work hard to make food responsibly. Respect for the resources and the wonders of nature, which she and the generations after her deserve to inherit in decent condition. And she should understand that how she will spend her money will have both consequences and influence. Oh, and really importantly, I want Gigi to know that feeling I had when I was young. The joy and the love that comes with sharing good food with others. Sounds like I want some kind of food utopia, doesn't it? Well, that's not too far off, and it's actually not far away. It all starts down on the farm.
I live in Evansville, Wisconsin, a small town about 20 miles south of Madison. All around southern Wisconsin are farms like this one, where people are raising vegetables, fruits, and livestock using traditional and sustainable methods. It's a system that's been successful for thousands of years. It doesn't need pesticides or hormones or bombing the soil and water with high-powered chemical fertilizers. In recent years, it's proven to be economically sustainable too, in the Madison area, in Minneapolis-St. Paul, and other places around the country. People buy their food directly through community-supported agriculture shares, or at one of the many farmers markets in towns around here, or indirectly at co-ops in the cities. The money goes back to these farming families, and it stays in their communities so that they can support the shops and the health clinics and hardware stores and schools sustaining their rural communities. There's someone else buying this food too, and that brings us, finally, to a tasty guide to a healthy planet.
There are restaurant chefs who look for fresh, organically made food, and they're buying it from the farmers too. There's a lot you can learn from chefs. These are people who've spent a good share of their lives thinking about food and putting it together in ways that turn people on. There are more and more chefs who think not only about how the dishes they make taste, but whether they're actually good for people, meaning not just the people who eat the food, but the people who grow the food. And whether it's good for the land and water, and even how the long-term health of the economy can benefit. That's a lot to think about, but it actually all comes down to one decision: choosing how you get your food. In a tasty guide to a healthy planet, we're going to meet a bunch of these chefs. They're going to talk about why good food is important to them and how they support a sustainable food system. These are chefs from different backgrounds and traditions, but what they have in common is that respect I was talking about for people and the process of making good food. We'll meet some of the farmers they get their raw materials from, and talk with them about what they do and why. And we'll get a deeper understanding of how living and working with this philosophy of sustainability can actually make for a better world. Back in their kitchens, these chefs are going to make tasty dishes for us and show us how it's done. We're going to meet people who will fill in ideas for us, like a children's nutritionist, a soil scientist, a historian, maybe even a philosopher. You just don't know who you're going to meet until you check it out. So, Tasty Guide to a Healthy Planet is kind of a cooking show, but we'll have a different chef and restaurant each episode. It's kind of a travel show where we're going to different farms and creameries and rural communities, and we're talking to people. We'll talk about water and dirt, and why some things are good for you and others aren't. We're gonna mix in some interesting personal stories too. We'll have some fun with kids and maybe learn a few things from them. And I think the adults will have some fun too. Basically, Tasty Guide to a Healthy Planet is about making life more enjoyable and more fulfilling. There's so much genuine pleasure in eating fresh and tasty food. Why shouldn't we feel good about what that does for others too? So come along with us. I guarantee it'll make you hungry for good food well made. And you'll see how you, just by eating, can join a bigger community of people who are making the world a